design is a very artistic thing, but in reality, design is applied psychology.
Hi everyone, hi guys. So welcome back to another episode of Beyond Founders. We're here with Phil, and we're here in Shanghai.
I got my start in tech when I was literally a high school student, and I started doing hackathons, and I started traveling around the US and competing and getting to meet other people my age that were interested in building interesting things with technology. But then I went to university, I started studying cognitive science, psychology, a bit of neuro, and I started getting really interested in how can you build systems to identify talent and opportunity at scale. Started from scratch. And my father's side of the family moved to the US during the Iranian Revolution and lost everything. They've also lost their credentials. Crypto and the way in which it can enable us to cross borders, to connect communities, people together, that's the promise of crypto.
Hi everyone, hi guys. So welcome back to another episode from Beyond Founders. We're here with Phil, Hedayatnia, and we're here in Shanghai. Very lucky to have met at Taipei Blockchain Week, and now I have the pleasure to interview him. So Phil, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So I have been hearing a lot about your work, how you got into design, how everything started, but I would like to hear it, and I think that also the rest of our audience would like to hear it from you. So you've been done cognitive science, design from early on. You were at university in the US. So walk us a bit through your journey. How did everything start?
Yeah, I think my journey was very convoluted because it's like I got my start in tech when I was literally a high school student, and I started doing hackathons, and I started traveling around the US and competing and getting to meet other people my age that were interested in building interesting things with technology. Didn't really know what I wanted to do yet, but then I went to university, I started studying cognitive science, and so I was taking a bit of CS curriculum, a bit of psychology, a bit of neuro, and I started getting really interested in how can you build systems to identify talent and opportunity at scale. So I ended up dropping out of school. I started a company building applied psychometric testing software, and then brought it out to San Francisco, and then we got acqui-hired about a year later, and that was my first plunge into working at all, right? Which is kind of crazy. And so I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I knew that I had a little bit of engineering ability. So I thought, well, the next logical thing for me to do is just work as an engineer. And I joined an early stage startup that was building a very similar product to what I was previously building. But then I realized that the stuff that resonated with me the most actually had a lot to do with, building it had a lot to do with how can you create front ends that that resonate with people. And I had done speech and debate when I was in high school. So I've been doing public speaking for a while. And I realized that it's all kind of the same thing. It's all just an understanding of applied psychology. It's like, how do you understand what's going on in the person's head that you're trying to reach? And how do you work backwards from there to create something that resonates with them? And I didn't know it at the time, in part because I thought I'm not a very artistic person. And design is a very artistic thing. But in reality, design is applied psychology, right? As Don Norman wrote in The Design of Everyday Things, design, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something along the lines of design is a conversation, right? So after working on that, I worked for a couple other early stage startups. I was part of a community called South Park Commons, which was kind of an early stage founder community and accelerator in San Francisco. And it was through working with a lot of those founders that I saw a lot of problems with the way that they would work with product design agencies, brand design agencies. First of all, oftentimes those two would be separate. They wouldn't be the same thing, which I thought led to kind of a disjointed kind of overall, it would kind of lead to disjointed looking products. But the other problem was, I think, more systemic with how agencies actually work. When I describe Airfoil to people who do this sort of thing or work in agencies, I don't really describe us as a creative agency. I describe us as almost like a frontier tech native like Deloitte, because we'll come into a project and we'll staff it with senior and staff level designers that then integrate directly into the teams that they work with. The way that most agencies work is you'll have a couple creative directors who are involved in every project, and you have a lot of individual contributors who simply execute. But I think the problem with that is that those, is it really the creative director's time, brainstorming, thinking through the problem space, interviewing users? That's the valuable thing. And I think most agencies don't uh, operate with a model that enables those creative leads to have that freedom. And we, we're a majority full-time team. We are very liberal with how we give out our time, right, on projects. I think that approach makes more sense for early stage founders. So that was kind of the philosophy behind Airfoil. When we started, we weren't Web3 focused per se, but I noticed over and over again that Web3 I think this is true of most technical founders, but it's especially true in the crypto space where all this tech is very new to people. And a lot of the people who work on this tech don't know how to express it in a very clear way. We decided to focus in on that mostly because, we realized that the more that we worked on these projects, the more understanding and background we built in the space, the easier it was for us to move the needle quickly when
Right.
working with an early stage project.
Interesting. So, let's go back, side by side. Like, first of all, let's focus on cognitive science, psychologic behavior, and how did you start, and when did it click for you that you had like all these different components, and that like you had the capacity to apply this for all the different projects, and like what was your say your secret sauce for that?
Yeah. Um, I think that the secret sauce had a lot to do actually with the speech and debate stuff that I did a long time ago because it honestly it's so similar, right?
Mhm.
It's like if I'm gonna go into a pitch meeting and pitch something that I'm working on, the way that I would structure an argument in that room is very similar to the way that I would do that in debate.
Mhm.
And in reality, it's very similar to the way I would think about like a landing page.
Mhm.
Like I had a call earlier with one of our clients earlier today, and we're sort of talking about the competitive landscape. We have a page in Figma, and we just have every single competitor in their space, and then every single analogous company in Web2. And I broke down the sort of arguments that every kind of player was making. And I was like, well, this tells me that everyone is operating on this set of assumptions. But from the sales data we've reviewed, from the sales calls that like we've sat on, I think everyone's missing this. And like that's, like it's related to design. I think it's like an integral part of redesigning a website. But like it's the same process
Mhm.
that somebody who is skilled in communications would do. It's the same process that somebody prepping someone for a debate round would do.
Mhm.
And I think that's also been something very distinct about us.
Mhm.
Because like there's a lot of amazing agencies out there, and so we're always like looking to see what people are doing. And I have noticed some projects where there'll be an agency that will nail the visual execution and will be wowed by it,
Mhm.
but then the product will still be unclear. It'll be difficult to understand. Where I think we honestly do a good job of is it's figuring out the narrative,
Mhm.
and then creating the visuals to back up the narrative as opposed to creating the visuals and then letting the narrative come later.
Mhm. So, question, after like all the experience that you've had with different projects, both like in the Web2 and Web3 verticals, what sort of pushback do you get from founders and C-levels?
Oh, a lot of pushback. Why is this so expensive? This is definitely one. I remember year one of the business. I was in New York. I was pitching a DeFi founder who will go nameless. And I was explaining to him, I was like, hey, you don't have a landing page. You just throw people directly into the DApp. Like, we should have that, a brand package. And he just looks at me and he's like, well, Curve looks like shit and people use it anyway. And I was like, I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
I do have kind of a theory around that as well, which is that, you know, does like investing in design does not always matter actually. Which is not something that I think designers will often say. It often does. I think what it has to do with is competitiveness. When you have 20 dexes in operation, when you have 20 perps dexes in operation, then you need to be very distinct because everyone's saying cheaper, faster, better. So you've got to say something else, right? But like if you are first to market,
Mhm.
then maybe that's not as important to you, right? So I think like the pushback I often get will be, well, I don't want to invest in visuals because my customers don't care about visuals.
Mhm.
And I'll basically try to always reframe it as this is not about that. This is about, we will work backwards from what your customers need and from what is stopping you from growing.
Right.
And we will suggest the design sprints and initiatives that will resolve that business problem for you.
Okay, and so going to build and they will come, do you think that UI UX really drives mass adoption? What trends have you seen in the Web3 versus the Web2 space?
Well, for mass adoption, I definitely think it matters. And I think it matters because there's, I'm going to paraphrase this quote, but it's from Reed Hastings from Netflix, where he said, like, he doesn't view Netflix as competing with Disney Plus and Hulu. He considers Netflix as competing with anything that occupies your attention, right? He's competing with going out and throwing a ball outside. And I think that's true. This is also why in B2B, sometimes it doesn't matter as much. So, crypto is incredibly hard to use. And if we're talking about like meeting people where they are, right? How often is it that I find a crypto protocol that is translated into Korean, into Vietnamese, for example? Now, these are two of the largest user bases in crypto globally, right? I think it's something like a third of the population of South Korea uses crypto.
Wow.
And
That's
they
impressive.
trade a lot, and the market is massive,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm like, well, the documentation isn't translated, right? So I think like, making sure that the UX is easy for normies is, I think, like one side of it, but it's also about like not just building for like a domestic US audience, and like really thinking about where might my users come from around the world and how can we meet them where they are. This even extends to brand design, like the colors that are used, the style of illustration that's used. There's case after case of companies that when they expand into foreign markets in Web2 struggle. Pemin, the largest food delivery app in South Korea, went to the Vietnamese market, failed. Huge reason why is that the way that Korean apps look and feel is very different to Vietnamese ones.
They have to resonate with their audiences, right?
I mean, famously, like Uber isn't that big globally now.
Yeah.
Because they got beat by their local competitors in a bunch of markets that understood their markets better. So I think like that stuff matters a ton. I don't think we put enough effort to it. I think we fill our sites with so much jargon, and crypto is a huge bubble of people, and we speak to ourselves instead of, I think, speaking to the billions who need the technology we're building.
Right. And so let's go to use cases that you have worked on yourself with your team. So first of all, on scaling your team, and then second on the most significant projects that you guys have worked with, and why would you say that they stand out? What would you say that was the most significant from all these projects?
Yeah.
Talking Solana, Sui,
Yes.
Drift as well. So really big hitters out there.
Yeah. It's and it's been now it's over 350 projects worked on in crypto. So it's
Wow.
Pump.fun we worked with recently, the new Pump.fun advanced UI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that we've really enjoyed working with the Solana team a lot over the years, and it's been now like 4 years we're working both with like the core kind of labs and foundation, but then also Coliseum, which runs all the Solana hackathons and associated fund. We do one-on-ones with every finalist team in Coliseum to just prepare them, right, to get their products out into the world. It's been cool to see that because I think like, and I know people, especially given we work with multiple chains, right? We are a chain neutral company overall.
Yeah.
We're chain agnostic. What I think is really cool about Solana is that it's delivered adoption and community growth. And so, it's a good launch pad. Like if you want to get feedback from users, Solana is a great place to do that. And so, sometimes we'll work with a team and all of our work impact will be digital, right? So, we'll be completing UI UX designs or we're creating brand systems. But with Solana, like we got to go around to the hacker houses, do office hours, do talks. I got to speak at Breakpoint 2 years ago. We've done all these one-on-one sessions with the Coliseum finalists. So we get to really show up in person for founders, and they've enabled us to do that. I'm very grateful to them for that. Just thinking about the other stuff that we've done over time, one of the proudest projects, I think, we worked on something called Drip, which was a digital collectibles marketplace in Solana, where speculation is highly discouraged. And that's cool to me because I think creator economy use cases for crypto are massive. But when I look at, what have we really done with NFTs, it's been gambling, right? It's been just like, here's interesting pixel art. I think the value of it will go up tomorrow. And Drip was like, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the NFTs all free. We're going to make them worthless, but we're going to enable people to tip creators who they like. And that's the economy we're going to build. And so seeing Drip get into, at one point, it was one of the top 5 used apps on the entire blockchain. For about a 2-year period, it was in the top 10, top 15, while bucking the trend of what a lot of others were doing. And to the previous point about like, do you need to invest in UX for great, consumer adoption? When you got a product that is not even oriented towards Solana natives, but is oriented towards anybody interested in arts and culture, it's super necessary to get that right. And I'm very grateful that they put trust in us to deliver that.
Definitely. And a bit of a side question. So we have seen, especially with the explosion of GPT and other AIs, many people using, for example, Studio Ghibli's
Yeah.
design, right? So what is your take on that? And do you think that there's use cases as the ones that you were mentioning as a potential solution to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult question because I think people will hear different things in the answer. So I empathize a lot with illustrators who are very concerned about how this is going to impact their livelihoods, and I think that it will. I don't mince words when it comes to the impact of AI in the creative arts. At the end of the day, not everyone makes a living from doing, complete 0 to 1 work in their own style 100% of the time, right? For anybody working in this field, we're always, producing work to an idea that someone else has. And like the most famous of us, like, get to establish our own style. And I think that AI like can hurt a lot of illustrators. Um, at the same time, I think what it can also do is enable us to, if there's an idea that someone creates, it can enable that idea to grow very rapidly.
Yeah. Get
On the
that.
one hand, that can mean that someone else can appropriate your style very quickly, and an idea that you have put time and effort in to generate could be lost. That is a very, very fair point. But when I think about the traditional art world and like, why do people care? Why does someone care if the art that they have hanging in their home is an original or fake? It's because they care about the relationship to that artist. I can go buy fake Balenciagas right now. And
Definitely.
a friend of mine has a pair because she's like, the soles are actually way nicer than the real thing. And they're like more comfortable to wear. But the reason people buy art is because they want a relationship with the creator. The reason someone goes to a concert, you can pirate music, but the reason you'll go buy the merch of an artist that you like, or you go to a concert or you'll buy VIP tickets, it's because you want a relationship. So my hope is that by logging IPL on chain, by creating more creator platforms that enable direct relationships between fans and creatives. We worked on Sound at XYZ as well, which was one of the first kind of music marketplaces on Ethereum. My hope is that we'll be able to give creatives more ways to monetize, and given how easy it'll be for others to emulate their style, that we'll be able to make sure that credit for that still accrues back to the original creator of the IP.
Interesting. So now we're gonna get back a bit to Airfoil.
Yes.
So you have managed to scale one of the largest design agencies in crypto. So what would you say is your secret in like building and keeping your company strong, as well as like together with your team? How do you manage your team? How do you work with them, travel with them, etc.? And what brings you joy at doing so?
Yeah. It's always tough because like you're always very aware of like all the things that you wish you'd done better, or like, you know, every day, Min and I both are focused on, okay, we know this part of the business needs to be run better. How do we fix it? So taking a step back from that to being like, what have we done or accomplished, is interesting. But um, since we're cutting, I think I'll think about this answer a little bit and then I'll give it.
Yeah. So I said, like, if you would be to take us back to the first days, to your first like core team and how you were thinking way back when, is there something that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah. Um, I think that when the company started, the largest company that I had ever worked at was 120 people,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't the best run, to be blunt. So it's like there's just a lot of lessons that I had to learn the hard way. It's one reason that I started working with my co-founder, Min. I mean, she'd
Mhm.
worked in larger corporates before and run larger design teams before, and I think was extremely helpful. I learned a ton from her. Even though these days I'm more internal and she's more external, honestly, you know, bringing her in as COO and helping her like build out her recruiting pipelines and develop the right systems for promotion and advancement and internal training and all of that, like becoming like a company and not just like a startup. I don't think that I could have ever done that without her and without her involvement. Um, I'm thinking of what are my key takeaways from the experience,
Mhm.
and it's like the first thing is that, you know, I think one of the I don't know what the beeping is, but
No, neither.
I don't know.
Um,
I hope it's not the mics.
no, I think it's the alarm or whatever.
Ah, okay.
You
Probably
you can you can unplug it, girls, like if you want.
it should be fine.
Yeah, so
Um,
it doesn't beep.
I think I know where I'm gonna take this question. So,
Yeah. Okay.
um,
If you want to take a moment, like we can also like hop to another question.
yeah, I think I know where I can go with this one. So just start in a couple seconds. Okay. We were building this business out of the pandemic, and I think the one very common assumption back then was that, now we can build companies remotely, we have better tooling to do it, and we can hire people from anywhere. And I don't think that's entirely true, which is like, given we are a remote first company, I think surprises some people to hear, but uh, I think about it this way. If you're going to hire somebody, you have to also deeply understand them. And the thing that we have in person is the ability to look each other in the eye, to understand where I'm coming from. I might speak in a particular way, I might be blunt, I might be indirect, and you can suss that out from the relationship of like being here. You can't do that remotely. And the problem with hiring from anywhere in the world remotely is that you don't necessarily know the culture and background from which they come and the communication style they're going to follow. We did our first offsite like 3 years ago, in-person offsite in Seoul, and it was great. It was great to like get everyone from around the world in one person, in one place. But I remember that offsite viscerally because there were all these times that we had to step in and recall, something as simple as, I remember there was someone on the Singapore team was frustrated because they kept buying coffees for someone else on the team, and that person never reciprocated.
Oh,
And the other person was like, but they kept offering coffees, very
yeah.
nice of them. And the Singaporean was like, yeah, I offered coffee, so you next time should tell me no, I'll buy it for you. I don't know. It sounds little and insignificant, but these things build up.
Yeah,
And
they do.
so part of
Mhm.
it as well was we ended up writing out a doc that was like, here's how we communicate at Airfoil.
Mhm.
Because just by clarifying, like, I don't think that workplaces should be cutthroat. I don't think that they should be like, dog eat dog. I actually very much disagree with that. I think that they should be empathetic, supportive places. But defining what does empathy mean in the
Mhm.
workplace
Yeah.
and how should I expect my coworker to
Right.
interact with me, you do need somebody in leadership to define that very clearly. And so I think like now I really like the remote environment we have.
Yeah.
I think like the vibe of the place feels really great.
Mhm.
But I think Min and I both had to learn as leaders like how to cultivate that. And I'd only worked in SF for most of my career. I had not known what it was like to work with an international team. Of course, now I live in Singapore
Mhm.
and I'm all the time working with our international team, but it
Right.
took time
Yeah.
to learn
Mm.
that.
It's quite interesting, cross-cultural communication and like how to understand different like contexts of societies. There's actually a really nice book called The Culture Map by Erin Meyer. If you haven't read it, I can really recommend it to you because it opened my eyes like in many ways in regards to different cultures and like perceptions as well. So yeah, definitely really interesting. Okay, great. So and on scaling your company, on scaling in terms of business, how did you manage to do it successfully and in a sustained way?
Um, there's a mixture of successful things and then things we really wish we would have done differently. And like at the beginning, I think we took the approach of like very much like a Valley startup. It was like everybody we hire, um, we're not going to fuss very much about even how much talent will cost or benefits or anything like that. We're just going to go like do whatever we need to do to win talent. We will just go to the ends of the earth to win talent. And it worked initially for us quite well because I think we had some really great folks join the team and did some great work as a result. The problem was that when SVB collapsed, FTX collapsed, the crypto markets were down, traditional tech wasn't investing, and all of that happened in roughly the same period of time. I'll just be blunt. We saw a tremendous drop in revenue all of a sudden. And like I'd never been at any point in my career in any point of crisis like that. Didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time where we had to do a round of layoffs. The only round of layoffs we've ever done. We've kept it that way, but we hadn't thought through like the long-term financial plan for the company as well.
Right.
And afterwards, I mean, myself, Min, and our leadership team, we charted things out quite differently. And we were like, okay, so, we decided to grow after things rebounded much more slowly. And the way that I put it to talent was this. I said, look, I'm never doing a round of layoffs again if I can avoid it in the rest of my career. And I consider that to be like a failing. So if I'm making a promise that we are going to make this place a place where you can build your career, then I want to keep that promise. So we do very extended trial periods with people.
Right.
There's a lot of people we've hired part-time for a few months, and then we see how they perform, and then we give them a full-time offer.
Interesting.
What we used to do, there was a period of time where we were onboarding 1 to 2 employees a month.
Wow.
Which like it worked for growth, but like number can go up, number can also go down.
Yeah.
I think like maybe we even needed a moment of like seeing that happen to remind ourselves like, we're here to build a sustainable decade plus run business and not like to just grow. Also because we don't have investors. So it's like there's no one giving us a soft landing if things don't turn out.
Definitely. Wow, that's really interesting. Well, so moving on to what we talked about yesterday. So
Yeah.
the global south use cases and the ethos and the vision behind all this. Like, so why now? Why crypto? What are we seeing in terms of trends in the tech world? How can we improve this, if anything? And what would be your vision behind it? So we talked about the global south as being like one of the or if not the main adopters of technology, and it is usually out of a need, right? So we do know that Argentina, out of most places, it was the country with most workers paid in crypto, for example.
Yeah.
We have seen like how massive the market is in Southeast Asia as well.
Yep.
So want to have a bit of an understanding from your side. What is your vision behind this? And then in terms of community growth, community fostering. So yeah, just what we chatted about yesterday, but
Sure. I mean, the stuff that got me really interested in crypto, it is personal. It's my father's side of the family moved to the U.S. during the Iranian Revolution and lost everything, right? As everyone moved in 1978, 1979 did. They've also lost their credentials, right? Most of my dad's side of the family is in medicine. They didn't get to keep their medical license when they moved, right? Despite the fact that they all were practicing in a country that had very high standards. They came to the U.S. and they started from scratch. When my mother's side of the family, when they left Colombia as well, it was because, my grandfather was the general accountant at Banco de Bogotá. It was not a safe time in the 70s to be affiliated with a bank. There was a lot of cartel violence. That was a big impetus for leaving Colombia and moving to the United States. But again, they started from nothing, right? And, my family worked as housekeepers like when they came to the U.S. And that was always a frustrating thing because it was sort of like, I don't want to portray my upbringing to be some horrible thing. I think I had a fine upbringing, but there were so many struggles growing up that had they kept at all the position that they had, it wouldn't have been the case. And that feeling of like, why are these things not transferable? Why is it not possible to build systems and solve those problems is what got me into crypto. I think that like the reason that I'm trying to connect that answer a bit better. I get frustrated when I see people say we're going to build better peer-to-peer payments in the US on crypto rails. And I'm like
for what?
We have Venmo, we have Zelle, we have all these things. you could make them 5% better, I'm sure, but like at what cost, right? And meanwhile, there's all these other big kind of low-hanging fruit problems to solve, right? Southeast Asia is a region with a bunch of medium-sized economies that are growing at very, very fast rates. But what they lack is they lack good cross-border payments infrastructure.
Great.
You've got 100 million population in Vietnam. You've got it's 8% annualized, wages are going up by 8% annualized right now. It's an economy that's growing super, super fast. And if I want to get a multi-currency USD account in that country, they're going to want a $25,000 minimum balance in a country where the median income is $700 a month. Like, it doesn't make sense. And we can solve these problems, I think, very easily with crypto, but we got to show up and do it. And I don't see that focus, right? The markets that are quote unquote the highest value because the people just have the most money are also the markets that traditional finance has served the best. Whereas like crypto and the way in which it can enable us to cross borders, to connect communities, people together, I see the pitch for why crypto can be great. Yes, if you look at the global south, there's a lot of countries that are overlooked by large players, whether it be Stripe or whether it be Wise, because they say, well, each individual customer in this market, they just don't have a high enough net worth for us to focus on them,
So
right?
the retail market is not of interest.
The retail market's not big enough. But what if you could take every small retail market, network them all together at the same time, and then make them bigger?
Yeah.
That's the promise of crypto. But I don't hear that pitch often enough. And I think it comes down to, I love where I grew up, and I love the US, and I love Silicon Valley. And I think Silicon Valley has done a tremendous amount of good. But one of the biggest negatives of the Valley that I find is that I don't think that people in SF tend to think about problems that don't affect SF. And as a result, when I say something like the problem of even getting a bank account in an economy like Vietnam to somebody in the US, they're baffled that it's even a problem. They're like, everyone doesn't have one. And I was like, no, in these countries, only 20% of the population, if not less, has one. In Colombia, it's like, what, 18%?
Right.
This is a productive economy with highly educated workers, and they don't have access to basic financial infrastructure. So maybe we should focus on them.
So it's interesting you mentioned this, because one of the things that actually like took me to crypto as well, like having a background in political economy, emerging markets, and journalism, is actually the power to have, the power to give emerging markets access to a global financial system that otherwise wouldn't have had it. So if you're looking at Africa as well, many countries in like South and like East and West Africa that have not had the ease of getting into the internet before, but then all of a sudden they have mobile banking through their phones, and that's a huge leap as well. So if you think about it, like technology is advancing at a speed that like it is promising that advance, but really, is it delivering? That is an interesting question, isn't it? So no, that is great. Then we also chatted yesterday about community building, community fostering, and you were definitely passionate about like uniting communities, uniting talent. I think that is a great thing that you have. Probably one of your superpowers, that is like creating community. We're actually talking here today because we met in Taipei, and Phil here, he put a group of many different people in design, in Web2, Web3 together. So that's one of the reasons why we could meet. So yeah, over to you, Phil.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the kind of missions that we have at Airfoil, I don't know, at this point, it's like, is it Airfoil? Is it me? Is it like this stuff all gets mixed together? But like, I really like when you can create or build something that gives people better opportunity. And that's what I care about in crypto. That's what I care about even from the first company that I built. It was like frustration that resumes were insufficient to predict if talent would do well. And can we find a better, more meritocratic way to figure out who should be in a role? Is a bit naive on my part, but anyhow. So one of the ways that we meet designers is we try to show up in communities where they are, right? Hosting events in Singapore and KL and Seoul and Shanghai now as well. Talking to folks who they may not know who we are, they may not have heard of some of the clients that we've worked with, but just getting to meet us as people. But one of the cool things about that experience has been facilitating connections, right? We met in Taipei. I was bringing a group of friends to Shanghai, and then we like hung out here, and you got to meet them and everything. And it's like, I love getting to do that sort of stuff, and that's what I think we want to do a lot more of going forward. Like, there's tremendous talent across Asia. I mean, that sounds like a very obvious point. But that talent doesn't necessarily know each other, right? It surprises me that, like, even if we think about like art communities in East Asia between China and Korea and Japan, I don't find that the people I know in each one of those three know each other. And certainly in Southeast Asia, there's a tremendous amount of kind of fracturing. And Southeast Asia, there's so much potential. Again, it sounds arrogant for me to say that, but it's like, I went to KL Illustration Fair recently. It's one of the largest illustration fairs in the world, held in a mall called GMBB, which is 8 floors tall, entirely filled with independent artists and workshops.
Wow.
Right in the center of a city. I mean, that's an incredible thing. And so I was like, wait a second. So my friends in East Asia don't know this exists. My friends in the US certainly don't know this exists. What's going on? And it's like, as much as the region has blossomed and come forward, there isn't the connective tissue among creatives to get to meet each other and collaborate with each other. So, I'm not saying that we're going to build that connective tissue. That is a huge undertaking, but we're going to be doing a lot more events. We're supporting communities. We want to play a part in helping talent across the region find each other, collaborate with each other, make money doing what they love. And I think there's ways where Airfoil as a business can benefit, but also we can build communities. And that's like one of the things that I love most about being able to have this job is I love the community that we built at the company, right? Almost everybody on our team, despite the, 14, 15 countries people come from, almost everybody in the team has met at least half the company in person before. And like that sort of thing where like there are friendships that wouldn't have otherwise existed, like that's the fulfilling part, I think, of the work.
Wow, that's impressive. So we have seen examples such as like also Solana, the super teams in different countries trying to unite their builders and having different initiatives for builders, projects, etc., to come together. So definitely we're starting to see a bit of a shift in terms of what either companies and communities want to do to unite talent. And I really like the part that you think is part of your ethos as well. So, guys, well, thank you for listening today. It's been a pleasure having you, Phil. Thank you for coming with me. And we'll have a second round in Singapore. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Amazing.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.